Welcome back to your third video. This is the only lecture you're going to have this semester. It has 3 videos. Kind of weird. I thought it makes sense to do this separately as its own video, just in case you want to watch the project bit again. You don't have to skim through the second video to find it. So we're going to look at your project together. I'm going to read through everything and try to explain what my thinking is and what I'm looking for. And if you have any questions, of course, bring them to the lab period, and we'll discuss them. So you can find this on the weekly schedule right here under project. This is due. Well, it's got a couple due dates. There's a milestone which we're going to look at that's due in week 10, and then the rest of it is due spread out over the last 2 weeks. So there's kind of like 3 different components to this that all fit together. We'll get there. So Linux is all around us. I've talked about this in class a few times. It powers services that we use in our daily lives, and there are different specialized Linux distributions, or distros that are used for specific areas of use. Linux powers everything from smartphones and devices. If you've got an Android or a Google Chromecast device that's using Linux. Linux powers a good chunk of the cloud, and by cloud I mean cloud servers and cloud architectures. Funny cloud joke that I heard is a kid and his dad are talking, and the dad turns to, the son turns to the dad and says, "Daddy, what are clouds made of?" And the dad turns to the kid and says, "Linux servers, mostly." And it's true. Linux powers a very, very, very large percentage of the cloud market. Even Microsoft Azure, or Windows Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud, that's powered by Linux in the back end. If you open a terminal or command line, you get a bash shell, which I think is kind of cool. Even Microsoft is using Linux. And even organizations like NASA. NASA's not going to put people into space and control objects in space with Windows machines that might crash. One of the advantages to Linux is you can have it up and running for virtually ever without having to reboot, and you can reboot when you want to reboot. It's not likely going to crash on you. So you're going to research a Linux distribution, and there's a list of them below that we're going to look at, and you're going to look at these criteria. And then you're going to try to answer all these questions, and you're going to prepare a presentation with a live demonstration and a written report. And your live demonstration and presentation are going to be in the last 2 weeks of the course, so you guys are going to kind of be teaching the class for those last 2 weeks. Keep in mind this takes place of a final exam, so there is no final exam or test in this course. And we'll talk about, as we get closer to them, we start preparing things, but I'm going to provide you access to a tool that you can use. I'll show you the tool, but I'll provide you access to a video demonstrating how to use OBS Studio, which is what I use to record your lecture videos. And if you want to do your presentation as a submitted video that you record, you can totally do that. And then I'll just play the video in class. So it's up to you. Either way, for your distribution, you're going to discuss all of these things. You're going to discuss as far as what distribution you've got from the list, where it came from. Talk about its history. So where it came from, when was it developed, where was it developed, when was it first available, anything interesting you discover along the way, and talk about its latest release or latest version that's available. When was that released? When did that come out? You answer these things. As far as its use, why would you use this particular Linux distribution? And I've tried to make sure that I've picked just about everything on the list has a very unique, specific use. So why would you want to use it? What's it used for in industry? who uses it? I'm talking about, I'm missing a closing bracket there, I should fix that. So users or major companies or organizations, or both. I want you to talk about its Linux family. So is it, for example, is it Debian based? We talked about Linux families a little earlier in the semester. So just like you can mention that in a sentence or two. It doesn't have to be big for your presentation. And in terms of package management, how do you install software? Do you use apt-get? Do you use DNF? What tool do you use to install software? Now, before we get too into the specifications, this project can be done individually if you so choose. Or, if you wish, you can do this in a group of 2. I don't want to see any groups bigger than 2 because it gets a little too unwieldy, especially in this remote environment that we're working in. As you increase the number of members in a group, it gets a little hard to deal with and a little complicated. So, you're going to install one of the distributions from this list here as a virtual machine, and you should know how to do this because we installed Red Hat in your tutorial 7, based on the last digit of your student number. So notice I've given you different distributions beginning with 0 all the way up to 9. And I don't think I'm going to spoil the fun. I want you to do some research. I'm not going to tell you what these different distributions do, but they all do different things or are used for different things. You're going to research all of the above criteria that were outlined in the overview and compare your distribution to Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So why would you use this over Red Hat? Why not just use Red Hat? Which you've installed or will have installed in tutorial 7. I want to note, if you are going to work in a group of 2, you can choose one of the 2 options from your student numbers. So assuming your student numbers don't end in the same digit, which is entirely possible, you can choose one of the 2 from your student numbers. You're going to have to create a virtual machine and use that in your presentation with live demo, or at least the live demo portion of your presentation. You're going to want some slides, of course, for answering those big questions. And your virtual, and you're going to have to include this in your documentation for your written report as well. Your virtual machine name format should be the distribution, or short form for the distribution if it's got a long name, dash, and then your student ID or IDs, and you can separate these if you're working in a group with another hyphen. So, for example, RHEL for Red Hat Enterprise Linux dash student ID. Hopefully that makes sense. And again, if you have any questions, bring them to the class. Now, as far as your submission, there's 3 components to this, which I already mentioned. The first one, the project milestone, is due in week 10, and it's worth 5%. And all you need to submit for that is a Word document including all of the screenshots for your Linux VM. And this is for 2 reasons. It's try to force you to work on having that install set up by then and get ready for the report, and it's also sort of preparing you for the report. Because you're going to take all of these VMs, or all of these screenshots that you include here, do save them, because you're going to need them for the report, and you're going to include them with descriptions in your report. So that's due in week 10, and that's worth 5% of your overall grade. Your presentation, including the live demonstration, is spread out over the last 2 weeks, so it will be week 13 and week 14. I'm looking for something like in and around 10 minutes in length. Try not to go too much over this because we do have to fit all of you into 2 classes. Although with videos, I guess I could post some videos asynchronously like your videos here. But in and around 10 minutes. Don't go too crazy. I'm not going to take marks off if you're, 15 minutes like max. But if you're like 20, 30 minutes, no, cut it down, please. 10 minutes. Try to answer all those things fairly briefly. You don't have to go into super detailed things in your presentation, because I'm going to get that in your report. Your demonstration should include, obviously, log into the VM, show me it running, browse the start menu, the launcher, and show me around, and show the class around too, because you're kind of teaching the class in this week. You can run a program, or you should run a program. This could be a web browser. So just show me how to execute a program, and anything. I want something interesting you discovered in your research. So if you've discovered a really cool feature in that particular distro, you can show me that. So that's it for your presentation. Again, bring your questions to the lab class. Onto the report. So this is the third part. This is worth another 15% of your overall grade, and should be about 15 pages, give or take. Again, you can go over a bit, you can go under a bit. It doesn't have to be exactly 15, just approximately. Due in week 14. And there's a specific due date for this in Blackboard. It's the end of week 14. It's the last day of class. I don't remember what it is offhand, but it's in there. Your report should consist of a cover page, which includes all of your group members' names and their corresponding student numbers. And if we need to look at a sample of this, I can do that later, but it should be pretty straightforward. That counts, incidentally, for one of your 15 pages. A table of contents. So if you're using Microsoft Word, you can auto-generate this, which is particularly helpful. An overview of the distribution. So here's where you're going to talk about those things, about its history, what it's used for, its most recent release, stuff like that. Your installation screenshots with descriptions. So here's where you're going to take everything that you did in that milestone, and you're going to insert that in here and add descriptions about what happened here. If you want a sample of kind of what I'm looking for, look at tutorial 7. My instructions for tutorial 7, that level of detail would be good. I should be able to give your document to anyone else, and they could install your operating system and configure what you've done. Give me a conclusion, so what you learned, what you liked, what you didn't, and again, you're comparing these too, right? So in your overview and conclusion, you're going to write some comparison to this distribution versus Red Hat Enterprise. Why would you use it over Red Hat? Or why would you use Red Hat instead? Because there may not be one is better than the other, it's just they're different use cases, which is exactly what I'm looking for. For the most part, they're all different use cases. And a final page including your references. So you have to cite things off. If you've used documents off the internet or whatever, you have to just source your resources. There should be some tools in the library for looking or for how to do that, and I will try to dig those up for you. All of your presentation slides and your report have to be uploaded to the assignment folder on Blackboard by the due date to get full marks for them. Take your time on this. Do it well. It is worth 35% of your overall grade, and it takes place at your final exam. So you're doing this instead of a final exam. So take your time, do it well. You're going to have the whole rest of the semester to work on this. Obviously, you got to try to have things done basically by week 12, but still, we're in week 7. That gives you a good 5 weeks to get things done, or most of the way there, because your report's due in week 14. Yeah, take your time, do it well. Keep in mind that the due date is the final day of the semester. Normally, I could give you a little bit of flexibility with late submissions as far as penalties, but because it's the last day of the semester, if it's late, it's a 0. So get it in on time, because you don't want to take a donut on a little more than a little more than a third of your grade. If you have any questions, bring them to the our class this week, and we'll discuss them together. Take care. Be safe. Have a good week. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.